2022 work session of the Richmond Community School Board of Trustees. Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we can have the reading of the mission and vision, please.
The mission statement is that Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
Vision statement of Richmond Community Schools is a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you both. Dr. Wright, celebrations.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that Mrs. Hazel Baker join us at the podium to highlight tonight's celebratory students.
Good evening. As you can see from the sea of red, that we have some very special guests here tonight with us. So I'm going to have them discuss what they're going to talk about, but I'd like to introduce Maya. I'm sorry, I tried in her. Abby Shull, Braden Baker. I'm sorry, Maya is the center drum major. Abby is the drum major. Braden Baker, band captain. Addison Crass, double ed officer. Emma Reagan, double ed officer. Marin Tanner, double ed officer. Noah Katie, drum captain. I'm so sorry. And Connor Hancock, drum captain. So if those students will please come up here to speak. Come on, Addison, you got it. So the board.
Are you pushing them up here or there?
We've got the camera.
Yeah, we have the camera.
Oh, okay.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Floor's yours.
Oh, I see. Like, what do I say?
If you don't mind, share with us. And again, I'm not going to steal you all's thunder. I was actually there along with others that were tuning in. And just, if you don't mind just sharing the experience that you all had last Friday, as well as maybe your name, your year in school, what instrument you played, and just how the experience was for you last Friday.
All right. I'm Maya Hawkins. I'm center drum major of the Red Devil Marching Band. I am a junior this year, and I play flute. That's my instrument. Friday was crazy. It was like I've gone to state fair before. I went for Apex Predator, which was the year before this year, and I was also a drum major then, but I wasn't center. And but this year was really cool because I actually had a better leadership position, and I'm not a public speaker, but
You're doing fine.
yes, thank you.
Doing well.
It was a really growing experience, I guess, just like having this opportunity to like really conduct the band like kind of in my own kind of style, because like I had to stick to a specific one last year, and like I got to explore and everything like that this year, and just being again a leader really, because I wasn't much of one last year because I was an underclassman and I didn't know what I was doing. But in this year, like just our new band new band, we had a new band director and we had a lot of new kids, and like we were teaching them all the ropes and stuff, and like a lot of them had never even been to state fair, and like it was just really cool to see like how they really felt like elated like after that performance. Like prelims was crazy because like it was like we were all like marching together. We were all like one unit, and it was really cool. We actually got the timing down, and we didn't really mess up at all. And like not that I could see, but and like I kind of blacked out in the middle of it because I was trying not to be too stressed. So, but all in all, like I was really proud of our band, and I was like moved by our performance, and I thought we did awesome, and the crowd loved us, which I didn't really get at first, but then after we watched like our performance, I could not get over how great we looked. And like I know we got 12th place, and I know we got 10th place just for that, but I felt like we deserved so much more. But I was just really proud of everyone, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. So.
All right. The next brave student.
I'll go. My name is Braden Baker. I am the 2022 to 2023 RHS band captain. I'm a senior and I play trumpet. I'm also a soloist in the show too, so you can hear me throughout some of those parts. But yeah, so Friday we had performed. It was a very, very long day, but it was really cool. I'm a senior, so that was like technically kind of like my last year. It could be like the last time that I, kind of stepped foot on that field again. So it was really it was a big experience for me. That first step I took, I was like, dang, the last 3 months, everything, this moment right now. So yeah, it's a very surreal experience stepping onto that field and being able to perform, but it's a privilege. So yeah, really is. My keyboard came out of this thing.
That's okay, not to worry.
But yeah, thank you for recognizing us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name's Abby Scholl. I'm the other drum major, and I'm going to be a junior. I play mellophone in a marching band, French horn, and concert. But so Friday was a very surreal experience, as they both said. It was really cool because this is my first year as a drum major. I've marched 3 other shows before this. I've been doing this since I was 13 in 8th grade. So it's a really cool opportunity to look back on how it must have looked for upperclassmen to watch the incoming people and see how much we all grew as a band, not only like how our show progressed and how we improved there, but also as a family and worked as a unit. We became a lot closer over the summer. And I'm very proud of us for that because we ended up, our night show performance was a very emotional time for a lot of people because we all felt an emotional connection to the show, and it was put to an end on the night show. But I think we were all very proud of how we did, and it really sunk in that we were superstars this summer, so.
So Abby, speaking of superstars, I heard one of the students designed your t-shirts.
Yes, she's up there.
Where is she?
Our
Look
shirt.
her up. Let's see, yeah, over here. Okay, well, good job on those.
Come on up, come on up.
No, everybody loved the t-shirts. Good job on that. So what was your inspiration?
Good question.
Well, I was inspired by the Hollywood Stars logo,
Okay, cool. Yeah.
which is kind of
Like I like the
this, but half.
centerpiece. Mm-hmm. Yep.
yeah. And then a little star in the middle. Why not? Yeah, I don't really know. It was a long time ago.
No, well done.
Yeah.
As I was walking around the fairgrounds, I just kept seeing them everywhere, and they really stand out, and they're visually stimulating and fun, and yeah, I'm sure they inspired you guys. So good job on that.
Thank you.
All right.
Next up.
Hi, I'm Noah Katie. I am the Drumline Captain for this year, and I play marimba. Friday was stressful, very, very stressful. But that's just because we have a lot of equipment that we have to move. But in the end, it's all very much worth it because you get to play, you get to let loose, and then after prelims, and we went to the awards, we won caption. So that was awesome for us because it hasn't been won in 3 seasons, 4 years and 3 seasons. So it was our 11th time winning caption, which is the most that a school has in this state. So we are getting the shirts made because they have a 10-time winning caption, so we're making 11-time winning caption one. So that was awesome. And Friday you just kind of have to let go when you play and just let it be as it is, because if you don't, then you're just gonna mess yourself up even more. So if you make a mistake, just let it go, keep going. And yeah, it was just ecstatic and fun and stressful and pretty much all of the emotions you could have in one day all put together. So yeah.
Hello, my name's Maren Tanner.
I'm Addie.
I'm Emma. We're the 3 Devilette officers this year, and I'm just going to say a few words about how great this season has been. I think you've heard from all of our fellow bandmates about how awesome the summer has been and the State Fair excitement on that day, but also I want to give a big thank you to Mr. Curtis Wright for joining us that morning and giving us a motivational speech. Kind of pumped us up even though it was 5 a.m.
It's a great day to be alive, and where else to be?
It was, exactly. Our team has grown a lot this summer, especially thanks to our coach, Kim Shipley, but not only in numbers, we went from 10 my freshman year, and we're actually 28 this year, so big growth, but also in our dance skills and just overall as a team, it's really been a great experience. So, do you have anything to say?
I would just say for State Fair, there's no better feeling than running onto that field and just knowing that all of those people there are watching you. Like there's no better feeling than that.
Yeah, it was a great summer, and I want to thank you guys for your time and giving us a chance to speak tonight. And thank you.
Any questions? Ladies, before you all leave, they may indeed, our board may have questions for you. Further follow-up questions, or?
I got so many questions,
I
but I
figured as
don't, I'm a football player, so the band to me was in the locker room and I could hear them and it was awesome. I love the drums. I don't even want to ask these questions because I'm going to look really ridiculous, but you said you're a drum major, but you play a flute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't get that. But that means you're the leader. But that's okay. I'm a football player. There's a lot of things I don't get.
My first year of marching was like 2019.
Yeah.
I like marched just for like as an invitational for like when I was in 7th or 8th grade. But like that was in my old state. And then like my first year I got here, which was like sophomore year, I wanted to be a drum major, so I didn't want to march. And so I got to be a drum major.
Explain to Mr. Moore that being a drum major has nothing to do with the drums.
Oh, it has nothing to do
There you
with
go.
the drum.
I picked up on that, believe it or not.
It has something to do with the drums. Like I have to watch center snare for his timing because like he keeps time on his feet, and when he marches, I have to watch him. So throughout the entire show, I just have to look at his feet, and I have to so it helps me stay on tempo. Like that may have something to do with it, but other than that.
But what I will tell you, and it really is just like when I played football, to listen to every one of you talk about how that felt and what it was like to perform out there. And I live just a ways behind you, so I hear the all summer long. I know the work that you guys put into it, and I know how hot it was when I was driving by in the air conditioning and you guys were all running around out there. So I know the work that you put in, and I think without that work, you don't ever get to the place where you all described of that Friday and how that felt. So I'm just really impressed and really proud of all of the energy and effort that you're putting in. And I'm also pumped because you said you're a junior, right? So we got another year with you running the show, and we got another year with a lot of you. I'm sorry you're leaving, but I'm glad you're leaving. On to bigger and better things, maybe. There are lots of marching bands in colleges and universities as well. So I'm even more excited to see where you guys can take it in another year, putting in this work and growing your ranks and getting all those people moving and being leaders. I'm so impressed with your performance and just listening to you tonight, because you can see and hear the passion that you have for it. So well done.
Yeah, I know there were some challenges early on. The band director stepped up. I loved the show. Maybe it's my age. I love we didn't have as many props maybe as other teams. But man, you guys sounded the best I've ever heard, I think. I mean, hearing you practice, that's, to me, that's band. It's the horns, the drums, the whole thing. I love the foreign marching. 28 devilettes, tremendous. To me, that was a winning program, and you even let me buy a T-shirt. So
I think
thank you so much.
If I'm not mistaken, I think we were the largest band there.
Is
And
that right?
when we took at the night show, when we took the track, the people behind me were like, "Holy cow!" Because it was just like, going from a fairly smaller band in front of you to all of a sudden, there was
An army of red.
It was.
They said 96 of you.
Yeah.
And 96 or 90, no more than two. Yeah. And every competition I watched you guys, my daughter was in 8th grade and played with you guys this year. And so the competitions I saw you guys up at Winchester and Centerville and everywhere, everyone in the stands behind us, every one of you, every single time somebody commented about the drums. So that was really cool to see and hear. And that state fair too, they commented on the drum line. So
You were,
I'm Drumline Captain.
but you were noted as you were given an award for the drums,
Yeah,
correct?
Yeah, we got caption, which is best percussion
Right.
in our class, and since our class is like the biggest, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, we got a big history
I didn't
of
know
drum
that.
line here.
See, we just answered another question because I didn't know what caption meant. But what? How does caption relate to drums? I don't know.
Just as I had mentioned to you all Friday morning, and just as Mr. Morey and Mr. Walton and the others have just attested to, you all have always and will always be the show before any athletic show. You all come before football, basketball, volleyball, tennis, the whole 9 yards. You're one of the first extracurricular programs to compete during the calendar year. And of course, you're year round. I was talking with you all's directors and coaches, and it's an extracurricular that indeed is so positive. And so to say that you all were first, I think is the way in which you all, if I can get away with saying, the way in which you all played the rock tune in the middle of the set, and you all started to, as you say, let loose, and you were head banging, and the gentleman had the guitar, and then he broke it, and it just but the joy that you all were playing with, and the fact that you all adapted, adjusted, and overcame those adversities that you all were experiencing early on, and throughout the course of a long day, you still made it work. And I think it was really symbolic of what our community, our city is about, what our school is about. You all exemplified and modeled that Red Devil pride, and I agree, without a doubt. I thought you all were the best band, the Devilettes, the performance you all put in. And again, the directors, coaches, Shipley, Simmons, you all, just again, kudos. And I'm just excited to see how much larger this program is going to continue to grow to be. And again, that tune I told you, as an athlete, when we hear those drums playing, the blood just starts curling in your body, and you're ready to go.
Pictures of me with my hair sticking straight up.
Yes, and I may have a picture or two of that. And so, but no, you all did a tremendous job, Miss Tanner. How you so eloquently stated there after the performance, because you had an interview in front of all of the entire state fair, and you just spoke so well as to what the program is about. So thank you all, thank you coaches, thank you very much. Yeah, and without a doubt, thank you to the Richmond Music Boosters, parents, volunteers, just amazing people, amazing people.
All right, that was that's the good stuff. Moving on to item 3, public commentary. Mrs. Clayton.
President Weber, am I doing time, or who's doing time? Who's doing time?
Kim's got it.
Okay.
I do not have my script for public commentary, so I think everybody's more or less familiar. We'll move on. Mrs. Claypool.
Amanda Mall.
And you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Amanda Mall, and I'm a teacher at Dennis Middle School. Some of you should be familiar at this point. I am here tonight to ask you an important question. What would have happened if there were to be a true emergency in my building where I work today? First, I want to preface by saying our new leadership is amazing. She comes from a top school in our state, and she has more resilience than many people. And yes, I've done my research. I know where we rank and where she ranked and where she came from. And she is amazing. I was impressed with her ability to come in and do whatever she needed to do to help us and make us better. But right now, we are on a ship with many holes. It is sinking, and it is not fair to anyone employed by RCS or who have students at Dennis for us to allow this to continue. I love my students, and I am so impressed by their endurance, understanding, and resiliency, but they are children. They shouldn't have to find out the answers. That's not their job. Why are we open? How are we safe? Until the board and leadership at central office can answer these questions, we should not be open and operating as a school building. I sincerely appreciated all the people who were present in our building today helping, but the system is still broken and we need a solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tia McCartish.
Hello, everybody. So, I want to start with a surprise and a delight. We actually had nurses in my building. I didn't think we would. That shouldn't be a surprise and a delight, but with how bad staffing is around here, I'll take what I can get. Especially knowing what happened at Dennis. I had a couple of my colleagues call me and tell me, hey, you know what happened here? It's actually kind of insane. There are rooms with kids that don't have adults. There are almost 100 kids in the gym classes because we don't have enough staff. There aren't any 7th grade teachers, and we started school. That's quite something. So I mainly came to talk about the nurse thing, but the dentist thing is also something that just like hit me like a truck when I found out those things. Like, it made me really angry because I really like my job, and I just kind of expect that we're a little bit more ready for these types of things. But who is like at the RHS Honors and Awards? I'm just a little bit curious to know if you guys are gonna know the story that I'm gonna tell. Because I'm mainly concerned with the nurse situation. I know a student, I had her when I was doing my student teaching, and she had seizures regularly and had to have medication for these seizures. At Honors and Awards, this student chose our former nurse at RHS, Deb Stracer. I hope she doesn't mind me talking about this, but she formed such strong relationships with the kids in our building that one of our students, instead of choosing, like every other student, a teacher that pushed her to be Honors and Awards ready, she chose our school nurse. Because our school nurse helped her at every step of the way. The seizures were partially stress-induced, and this student chose the nurse because the nurse made her feel safe, made her feel secured, made her feel nurtured, which is something that we are supposed to value. However, if we are a district that values nurturing our students, I want to know how we can not value our nurses. Every nurse left because they are healthcare professionals who made a decision seeing how Meridian ran and how Meridian was going to treat them, that they were not going to stay at the district. If we had 0 math teachers, or if we had every math teacher in the district leave, would we keep going or would we reevaluate our course? Every nurse left because they weren't going to be guaranteed employment. They could apply for employment. Nurses that know the protocol, know what's going on, know our kids, nurture our kids, love our kids just as much as the teachers love our kids, were not valued enough to be listened to and kept on. Their professional decision to leave was something that really hit me because I didn't know that, and I don't know if I missed that in the briefings or the resignations somewhere. I feel like it should have been a bigger thing to know that every nurse left because of our decision to move forward with Meridian. But I am happy that if one of my students was having a medical emergency, that there was somebody in the building to help them. Last night I didn't sleep hardly at all, and that should be first aid jitters, which it usually would be, but it was because I was terrified that something would happen to one of my kids and we wouldn't have a health professional to help them in the building. I was very relieved when I got an email saying that we did have a Meridian nurse. But I feel like the communication was very last minute, and there was so much stress put on a lot of people and a lot of my colleagues who also told me, yeah, I also had trouble sleeping. I felt very unsafe walking into this building thinking that I might not have a healthcare professional to help my student that might have asthma and might need, an emergency, whatever, might need that. So I just feel like there are aspects of some of our decisions that are really not putting students first. I felt like the nurse that I knew at RHS put students first at all times. And I hope that we move forward making decisions that are caring about the nurturing of our students, that are putting our kids first because they deserve it, and not being able to give that to them, it hurts me as a teacher. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stacy Plumley.
Hello. So I just actually found out we had this meeting about an hour before it started. This is my first meeting, so I'm going to try to keep it together because I'm a parent from a student that goes to Dennis Middle School. That place is a complete train wreck. I don't see how anyone could think our kids can be safe there. My son was sitting on the ground today in class. That is unacceptable. That is unfair to any kid that goes to that school because they have to sit on the ground during class. Picked my son up from school today, asked him how his first day is. It's a complete train wreck. His schedule was still messed up. We go to orientation on Monday. I go in there and they start bringing up the phone policy. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not completely against all of the rules for it because kids do abuse it, and when they have it out and they're playing with it, the teacher needs to take it from them. But I have an oldest son that was involved in a school shooting. The only way I could get a hold of him was from his phone. They hauled him and the rest of the kids at Dennis to the high school for 4 hours. If it wasn't for his phone, I would not have been able to contact that kid. They need their phones on them. I'm a concerned parent. No, I don't think any kid should be out playing on their phone, texting, whatever. But I want to be able to contact my son. And when the principal was giving the orientations, she said, if you have any concern, call the school. I shouldn't have to call the school and be put on hold. The counselor got up there and said, we're here to assure your kids are safe. Our kids are not safe there. They're not even fully staffed. So how can you guys assure us that our kids are getting a fair education, that they're safe, that these teachers that come up here, they're scared, they're upset. How do you know none of them are going to quit? You just had a principal last year, and is this a new principal already? These people don't want to stay. They're going to go to other schools. I have friends that are teachers and assistant principals, and they're leaving the county to go to other schools. They're underpaid. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to us taxpayers, and it's something needs to be done. Thank you, band. All you guys did really awesome.
Thank you.
Kim Tanner.
Hi, all. I actually didn't plan on speaking today. I was going to be sitting in the car waiting for the band to be honored, and at the last minute I decided to come in and see them get their awards. And so thank you for taking time to do that. Thank you for letting them speak about their experiences. What I want to add to that, which I, again, had no plan on saying, is I would love to challenge the board to think about a way to support our band. So our band is 98 members strong. They represented Richmond in a way I was so proud all season. But one of the things that you may not know about band is that only 46% of our band can pay to be in band. So it's a $250 fee. The band spends $26,000 a year to get from competition to competition, to feed our band, because they are here all the time. If you drive by the high school in the summer, someone is drumming somewhere, someone's dancing somewhere. But the other part about our band is, I don't know that you know, you know about Richmond and the socioeconomic place that we are. The band is home for these kids. For some of these students, this is their food for the day. I I'm not involved in the band actually at all. I drop off and I pick up. But I was talking to one of the band moms towards the end of the season. We were getting ready for state fair, and I was thanking her for all her work. And she said, well, I spend more time feeding students than I ever thought because they don't have food at home. So I really challenge the board to think about a way, because there's no funding for summer band that comes from the school in any way, shape, or form. It all comes from the music boosters. And they are trying and they work really hard. But you may not know that that truck or that, trailer out there still has a $7,700 fee on it that we are paying off, not we, the music boosters, are paying off. So we are scrimping and saving. Sometimes when we are out there on that field, we look like the poorest band out there. I can't tell you. We push things on. Everyone else pulls things on with fabulous equipment. That's okay. We don't care about that because we work hard. But find a way to feed our students, to care for our students, so the band can be as proud as they represent us every time. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for honoring them today. It meant a lot. And I hope in the future the school board will support the band. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item 4, consent items. Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I come before you to ask for approval of consent items 4.01 and 4.02, along with the addendum as presented.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent items, approval of minutes and the human resources report.
I'll second it.
Motion by Keith Morey, second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments?
This includes the addendum, right?
I believe so, yes.
Comment or a question?
Yes.
One of the areas that I think we still need to make sure that we revisit, that we don't, that it doesn't drop off the radar, at least for us as a board and you as a cabinet, is on the consent or the addendum side, there's a change in job title for a school resource supervisor to become an area manager. The last time that we had some discussion on this, there was some uncertainty about contract, responsibilities, whether RPD wants to be involved or not. I think that's something we still need to dive into rather deeply, because I feel like I really don't feel like the school system should become the expert in managing our officers that are carrying weapons. I think that should all be licensed. I know there's requirements and certifications that go through the sheriff currently. I just want to make sure that we're doing what is right or what's best for the school system. So I still want to dive into those contracts and responsibilities, and because I think there's some confusion on where the liability starts, where it stops, and I just want to make sure that we don't leave that as it is. So for whatever reasons, and I don't have a problem with the gentleman that's moving into that position. I think it's great that we have that, but let's close the loop.
If I might just speak to that, that usually comes up when the MOU with the Wayne County Sheriff's Department becomes open. We are still under the current contract for a while, so we'll take that under consideration and make sure that we.
How long are we under that current contract?
I believe it's until next year. It was from 2019, and so I think it's next year or the year after. So
part of the, not to carry on the discussion now, but for a later time. I think part of the discussion is if we're having problems with the staffing coming from their part, where the responsibility lies, that kinds of stuff, that if it seems to have changed slightly, and maybe it's just because of my knowledge, and that's fine.
yeah, there's not been a change. No. They've always been our employees.
It's a very unique situation, very much created here in Richmond early on in the overall statewide SRO process. Larger school corporations may have had their own police force, if you will. That wasn't feasible for us, but Sheriff Stripmatter was very good at reaching out and working with the board. They are our employees. We have shared supervisory responsibility because they are, in fact, duly deputized with arrest powers, and that's why they aren't. So they should be, I think generally are, academy grads, but even if they're not, they have to go through the SRO training. That's a legal requirement. And we're continuing to examine the relationship, but it ultimately, it's a shared responsibility. And at times it tugs in different directions. If an SRO is acting as, if you will, another administrator in a school, we want that authority to be there. We don't want that SRO to be held to a standard of that a police officer would be, for instance, in gathering evidence if an issue came up. But by the same token, they have arrest powers. They take students into custody, so they are under the police standard, if you will. So it's a very, very complicated situation, and it's a middle ground between those schools that are big enough to have their own police force, kind of like analogous to Reed having its own force. And there aren't many around the state, and I think there's a half dozen. And we continue to look at it, but it's...
They need to get that figured out coming from a community that's had school shootings. That should have already been taken care of a long time ago.
It's not that it isn't taken care of, ma'am. It's just that there are multiple stakeholders involved in this. And so it's not a matter of confusion. It's a matter of shared responsibility.
It sounds like it is.
I appreciate the complexity of the issue. I guess I'm just wanting to make sure that, because I know we made adjustments to the salaries last year to become more competitive. And if the sources of providing the personnel coming, from the sheriff's department, or the candidates are thin or whatever the reasons are, the point is, I just want to make sure that we also revisit the fact that if RPD wants to be involved again, there's a lot of things that I just want to make sure that we revisit and look at. So, I appreciate what they've done, and I appreciate where we're at, and I'm not trying to say anything negative about it.
Well, I think it is very much market driven, just as nurses.
But I think there's some other questions that we could ask in the later. I don't know personally if arresting authority is that important to us. So I would rather, if we would look at maybe a middle level of officers. I don't know how important, and I don't know enough about to talk about it.
But we have to have a school safety committee. I think this would be something.
Well, and that's
that
what
should be taken up.
My point is that over this next year, I'd like to make sure that we dive into that, because I think there's been some questions asked, like, how important it is for us to have someone that has arresting authority versus have someone having the ability to be a resource officer in the building. So we had talked about level of the deans maybe being improved a little bit. There's lots of different things like that.
Can we maybe hear about what the position, how it changes from SRO supervisor to area manager, what that means?
Do you want me to cover that? Okay. So, currently the supervisor is just that. They're just a supervisor. Over the other SROs. So they work with the sheriff's department, they schedule all of the security needs throughout the district. When somebody wants to use the facility for an event, they schedule that if security is needed, athletic events, et cetera, et cetera. With this, they also work just the school year that a teacher works. So the 186 days, that looks exactly like the teacher days. With this change, it is larger than that, so that length of time. They're actually going to work alongside principals and be here. The purpose in that is so that we can provide for planning time and training time with, we want to be able to do additional trainings on a regular basis that we do now, but just more of it. And then we also would like to utilize that staff person for some grant opportunities and some work in that department that would provide that extra time when students aren't in the building for the work that's needed on that. So we are broadening the job description quite a bit, but we also have provided additional days to make that happen. So those are kind of the beefier pieces. They're bigger than they sound, but it is additional work. And then as they did before, they'll work with building level staff on safety plans and drills for like fire drills, things like that, and just making sure everything is where it needs to be on that area as well.
There were quite a few more days. I mean, it's going from 186 to 225, is that right? So
yes.
we've got like 39 days extra.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty substantial.
Yeah.
And then the training component sounded pretty
correct,
hefty.
Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you for asking that question, Kristen, to see, or just to explain to the public what's changing. So.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to send a wrong message. I'm not trying to criticize what we're doing. I just want to make sure that we look at all the rocks and uncover the water. So thank you.
And I think we've heard about safety tonight from some folks. I think this only takes us to a higher level. I think we do have some questions about how we address things, arresting power versus maybe more de-escalation training. There's all sorts of things to discuss, but this gives us kind of a resource, more of a resource, I think, to lead some of those discussions even. So does anyone else have anything else? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the consent items, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to action items, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that Mrs. Scalf come before us for action items 5.01 through 5.03. Mrs. Scalf.
Actually, I only have 5.01 tonight.
Oh, do you?
So, yeah.
Well,
So,
5.01.
you guys only have to hear me once tonight.
All right.
It's kind of different. All right. So, before you tonight is the award for the RHS Tower Restoration bid. And I'm just going to read this because I do not want to botch it. And this is straight from the attorney and the guys that do this mouth. So it's going to be pretty important because you guys have to make a decision at that point. So bids for the RHS Tower Restoration were received and opened on Friday, July 15th, 2022. The notice to bidders was published in the Palladium item on June 17th and June 24th, 2022, and proof of publication and all bid documents are on file in the business office. The receipt for the bid report is attached for your information. Bids were received from Thor Construction Company, Midwest Maintenance, Inc., and Buckeye Construction and Restoration, LLC. The bid from Thor Construction Company was incomplete and therefore was not responsive to the specification and notice to bidders. It is recommended that the bid be awarded to the lowest, most responsive bidder, which is Buckeye Construction and Restoration, LLC. There was a base bid of $599,497 with 3 alternates in the bid. Those were, with alternate 1, an amount of $191,572, alternate 2 of $275,242, and alternate 3 in the amount of $282,074. It's recommended that the Board of School Trustees accept the base bid with alternate 1. Alternate 2 we believe should be subject to further review of the flashing once the existing roof is removed on the upper tower. Alternate 3 has considerations which provide the board with options on this alternate. The alternate provides for the removal of the boiler house smokestack, which is no longer necessary at the central plant building, with the installation of the new boiler system. At minimum, repair is absolutely necessary to this area. The options for consideration are outlined below. So, option 1, accept as bid. Remove the boiler house smokestack at central plant. Option 2, do not accept alternate 3. Look at restoration of the smokestack and pursue an OCRA historic restoration grant with LWC The grant deadline is August 28th, so if we want to move in this direction, I need to know ASAP, because I will have to get started with them right away. Option 3, do not accept alternate 3, rebid or quote the work to remove only the upper portion of the stack, which is the piece down to the next level of limestone. And then this would put it almost level with the boiler house roof. And then that is also available with option 2. So we could go do the grant and just take it to that next piece of limestone with both of those options. The recommendation is that the bid award go to Buckeye Construction and Restoration LLC. We recommend that it be the base bid, the alternate 1, and alternate 2 with the subject to further review. And then we do recommend that we utilize options 2 and 3 for alternate 3, and which would be to go down to the limestone, the next limestone section, and then go to the OCRA grant in order to fund that piece. The total cost of the recommendation you can see before you, with that portion that we're including if necessary for alternate 2. Funds for this project would be utilized from the operations fund, and a portion may require an additional appropriation or the addition of the project in the 2023 capital plan for the operations fund, just depending on the timing of when work can begin. So I open this to you.
Thank you.
That's a lot. I'm almost surprised that this didn't go back to either the facilities or the finance committee for the conversation. How long are the bids good for?
We have 60 days within which to issue notice to proceed from the time of the award. I mean,
From the time of the award or from the time the bid was open?
time of the award.
Bid. Oh, I thought it was from the time the bids were open.
I don't know. I kind of feel like I'd like to have some further discussion on it myself and maybe go over there. That's just me.
I would agree with that. I would like to, see exactly, I kind of know, I can kind of visualize what you're talking about with the stack but another question, I would like to know if anyone's looked into repurposing the smokestack. Is that something that people are doing? Do we have any concepts that we could look at for how that could be?
It needs so much repair.
Okay.
We have to actually fix it. There's no repurposing. You have to fix it, and we have to do something quickly. We have, and the concern that we have, this does need to move rather swiftly, because if we want the OCRA grant, we only have till August 28th. The next board meeting is the 27th. It does take weeks to do this, so I do not have a lot of time, and there are other things going on at the same time, so I just have to have the ability to know. The other thing is they really need to get the roof fixed before too late in the fall, because it does have significant concern right now that on that tower that it's fixed, it just needs it before snow comes. So time is of the essence on this project.
Well, if it goes back to the facilities committee, I can make myself available quickly. But I would just feel more comfortable. I don't understand it enough to really know which options that I would recommend. So
I would agree with that. I think we're $1 million to repair that. I think I got to wrap my head around it more.
It is the roof on the tower.
So if
So
we
it's the upper roof and the lower roof, so that is what the majority of the project is. So that, just to clarify that.
So if we would meet by Monday and have, or Monday or two, sometime next week, you could start the grant work even if the board doesn't approve it at their next board meeting. That could be.
If the board didn't approve it at the next board meeting, then it wouldn't, it would be past the time
Well, I
to
was
apply,
just
right?
saying though, is like all
Grant work could be done in anticipation.
in anticipation of the.
Right.
I mean, I don't wanna hold up progress, and I understand that, but I just feel like I need to get my head wrapped around this more. So I guess I would make a motion that we move it to the
So-
facilities.
I do have one request. Mr. Hamilton is currently out, so I will have to attend the facility meeting. I'm currently not a part of that. Because in his absence, you're gonna need somebody there. So, I can check with Mr. McCurdy and check his availability.
I was gonna say, I would
as well.
also recommend you have the architect there.
But then I guess I would make the motion that we turn it over to the facilities committee for a meeting as quickly as possible. And then I think we could, as a facilities group, we can send a recommendation or a thought to the board, and we can respond to it.
I feel like I'm back talking to the drum majors now. So I'm looking for clarification. Are we talking about the
Correct.
tower that's lit
So
up
yes, because it's
in the middle of the school?
Yes, so there's masonry work that needs to be done as well
Mhm.
as roof flashing
Mhm.
and putting a new roof on
But
the
there's-
lower and the upper part of the tower.
But then we're talking about a smokestack.
Correct. The smokestack is an alternate that needs to be taken care of, but because it's all masonry work, we could get, it's two different
And
structures.
that's where we're that's in the back
Correct, by the old boiler
by the
house.
career center. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All
I
right.
think the theory
That's why I
was-
was getting like, wait, hold on, what tower? And then we were talking about limestone. That's
Right.
on the tower in the back.
But it made sense to bid it together because it was all masonry work.
Common site and it's common concentration in trade of masonry.
I'm just clarifying
But
because
it was separated as a
I
water
was trying to think. I don't see a chimney up there. I've actually been in there, and that was what was
there's not one
confusing.
in
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
The only thing I didn't quite understand the removal versus the restoration. Is it a one or the other?
So restoration is you keep it as is and you redo it. You redo
Yes.
the pieces that need redone. There's an option to take, instead of restore it completely, you take it down to the next level of limestone,
Yes.
which fixes the bulk of the problems that cause us lots of problems on a routine basis. And then, but it does change the landscape of what that looks like. So you don't have the giant things shooting up in the air. It's just a little bit, it's closer to the roof of the building.
But it's unused.
But it's
Either
unused
way.
with the new boiler, either way.
Okay.
So they can remove it and just brick it all with the building. That's also an option. So
It's too bad it wasn't part of the $7 million bid. Smokestack part of it.
I didn't write that.
And so, the facilities committee, I mean, I don't see the difference between restoration. So if it's a removal, there's no grant money that would be associated, correct?
Correct. The grant money can take it down to the limestone and restore the rest, or it
Okay.
can restore
Okay.
the whole thing.
All right.
And how much does it offset? How much would the grant be for?
I don't know because we have to, it takes a lot. It could pay for most of it, if not all of it. I think they're up to $400,000. So,
Okay.
but they do it based on project. So I can't guarantee that we would get that, but it would definitely pay for.
Is there some historical significance to the smokestack
Oh, I'm sure
for the old boiler?
Always been there.
The site's a historical site, but I don't.
Well, I know the whole building is, but
I
I don't think anybody comes back to take pictures with the smokestack or anything, right?
I don't
mean,
think what we were doing.
Bridget, you're not running any tours.
And it's detached from
That's
the
why-
main building.
It's attached. from-
I think that would, I mean, if you're looking at the historical value of the main school building,
Mhm.
I mean, the central unit is
The project has been vetted
30
to the
feet
historic.
The general facade will stay intact.
The scope of the project.
And we're dealing with infrastructure.
And I do think, Keith, that that's a good question to be asking, and I think it should be something that we research. Is there any historical value? Is there any, significance in having that, or not,
It used to serve a purpose and it doesn't anymore. What I will say
Okay.
is it was there for a purpose. When the old boiler system was there, you had to have it. You don't have to have it with the new boiler system. It requires a ton of maintenance. And so it was, if we're gonna be dealing with masonry work, we have to get that fixed.
So
At least minimally that top part down, or restore it all so we don't have the problems for a
so
while.
if we get to the, let's say, I mean, I guess in my mind, if it's not usable, there's not, like, it'd be easier to just take it down. But if we can get grant funds to cover that project, if we drop it, and you said the funds would cover it to the lower, the limestone, wherever that
I mean,
is.
we have no guarantee, but they are substantial, yes. But I have 18 days, so I have to get cracking.
Yeah.
If we're going that way, because I also have other things
But does it-
like the budget.
But does it create more maintenance down the road is what I'm asking.
Could.
Like,
Yes.
it seems like redoing that for no reason other than to maintain this long, tall tower that we're gonna have to maintain later or tear down again seems like, I don't know. That's just, those are my thoughts.
All
I'm
right,
not on
so
the
the
facilities.
finance committee can meet early next week.
No, finance or facilities.
Our facilities part. I would assume this project will be passed in some form. I think that the board just wanted a little more input and information, and I'm sorry for the delay, but I think that's reasonable. So I'll call to table it. Ron, do we need a vote then?
Motion to table. Maybe I didn't hear.
I'll make the motion.
Do I need to work on the grant? Do I need to work on the grant
Yes,
or not?
I believe so.
Second.
All right, sorry.
Motion by Jeff Slifer, second by Kristen Brunton. Questions or comments?
I guess my other question, she's asking, do we need to work on the grant? Is this something we could, I mean, it sounds like we need to do some more research to find out if there's a reason that we would keep that tower, yes?
Well, can't we answer that grant, work on the grant question after we meet? I mean.
Well, except she's only
We're
got,
able to meet right away.
she's got,
That's the problem.
I understand, I understand.
Could you
she has
guys-
a lot of other duties, and I understand it's 18 days, but if we meet Monday next week.
is there a way you can meet, I'm asking, tomorrow or Friday? Because she's trying to get budget done too, it sounds like.
Whose facilities?
I guess that's what I'm asking, can we just, like, does everybody here think we should keep the tower or leave the tower, or I don't?
I kind of agree with Nicole. I mean, I hear that it's not useful for its purpose, but if there's some other reason we're not aware of, I'd hate to make that decision and then find out that it's part of the landscape that people care about,
Yeah,
or there's some
especially
other
if
purpose.
it's
I think we need
paid
to
for,
find out.
you know.
I think you can make the decision based on the grant award. So if the grant is a partial award.
I think
We would have to hold the bid until that time, and I don't know, let me look and see what that timeline is, but I don't know that we find out about the grant for a while. It's not an immediate return. So, I mean, we might be, let me look real quick on that.
I guess the point of me asking, while she's looking, the point of me asking is, do we want her to spend a whole bunch of time that she could be using to do the other things that she needs to do, working on a grant, if we're all just gonna go, it's a tower, we don't need the tower?
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I mean,
I mean,
think
that's
if
the whole reason why you
historic
take it
grant
to
feels
committee
like
to
there's
talk
a
about it.
warrant
and work it.
for it to be restored, then maybe there is some historical
Okay,
significance.
so my couple comments on this are, if we restore it, eventually it's gonna need maintenance down the road. And yeah, if we're able to get a grant for someone else to pay for it, we're still paying a lot of money, and someone's paying for it, wherever that grant's coming from. Taxpayers somewhere are paying for that somewhere. So why would we pay to restore it out of, even though it's someone else's money, which doesn't make it any more right, to potentially have to maintain it down the road? It makes zero sense to me. If it's obsolete, get rid of it. That's my
That's
thought.
what we look into.
That's my 2 cents on it. So
So I guess And I am concerned about a partial award that wouldn't cover the cost, and then we're back to square one.
Right.
You know, if it's a $300,000 grant and a $400,000 bill, we're still out $200,000. So I guess I would hold off on the grant.
Yeah, and I guess I would ask, I don't know if this is a recurring grant cycle. Okra is out there all the time. They're not going away, but I don't know what the nature of this grant is.
I don't know either.
And if you.
I think it's that if we're gonna do it with this project, then we would need to get in this year's to hit the timeline on
I understand that, but
project.
I think we recognize it's a standalone project. I mean, it could easily be a standalone project.
What is Okra again?
Oh, Office of Community and Rural Affairs. It's up to you. I mean, there's no problems with timing, but.
So the preliminary application is due the 28th. The formal final full application is due October 5th, with awardees announced November of 22 and agreements executed in January of 23. So if we were holding on the grant, then we're gonna hold a long time. So we either need to like put some type of something in the recommendation that we get started on, at least part of it to get started, so we can get the roofing taken care of, because we probably can't wait until November on the roof. Well, I know we can't. So even if we had some recommendations that we can move forward with some, I don't know if we can do that. I don't know that we can even split that up, but.
I don't think you can delay a masonry project into the winter when you spec it and bid it on a fast track that would be constructed during the non-winter season, because you know, masonry work in the
Right.
wintertime requires sometimes extraordinary site control as far as plastic demand,
Sure.
heating, humidity. I don't think our alternate bid would be any good if the contractor said, well, I bid this amount for alternate 3, but I'm not going to be able to do that if I start in December.
But obviously tear down could be done, so.
Pardon?
But if it was torn down, it could,
Well,
that's a different story.
Demoed, it's
That's a different story. So I guess I'm in agreement with Jeff to send it to facilities, because I've got a lot of questions I need answered.
I think you need to talk to
So-
the architect, and I think that would
Right.
be beneficial.
And we need to get ASAP. I mean, I could make myself available Friday if needed to. So, I mean, whatever we gotta do to get done, but.
And I think I heard Ron, the project could be separated. We can do the tower, and the stack could wait till next year. I mean, we wouldn't have the economies of scale.
Exactly. The only reason they were combined is because of the similarity in the trades involved. I mean, there's no interdependence on the structure of one and the other that I'm aware of, at least.
And I don't know if.
We're talking about the roof on the tower of the high school
Correct.
is what needs repaired
Correct.
immediately.
The lower and the upper.
Okay.
Now, this was kind of a,
This
So
was
there's
just because
no,
they were
there's no
already
roof of the
gonna be-
boiler room at all that's needing repaired or anything like that.
It needs repaired pretty severely, but it's not the roof. It's the stack, the very top
Gotcha.
of the stack needs repaired.
Okay.
So which of,
But it's not being used, so it's just,
So-
we have to do something just to
Just
stay.
look at all the questions we're generating now.
Right.
so which of the base bid is for which?
The roof, the tower.
Tower.
It's for the upper and lower decks of the tower.
Okay.
And
So
the-
if we just did,
high
the base bid, that would take care of the tower up front.
Well, an alternate 1 and 2. So 2 is only if it's needed once they get the flashing, because they don't know what that undercarriage looks like when they remove some of it.
Right.
So it may not be needed. Alternate 2 may not be needed, but they won't know till they get in there. So alternate 1 and 2 need to be. And
So
the base.
is it 1 and 2 or 1 or?
One
and 2? Okay.
One and.
All right.
the way it would work, you would award the base alternates 1 and 2. If they got into it after getting the flashing off and saw it wasn't that bad, they'd have a significant deduct change order for alternate 2.
Yeah. I think you got to talk about it.
But I think your questions are good ones, and I don't think I can answer them.
Yeah.
I think that's where Kevin can come in.
Yep.
What do we have estimated for the project?
We didn't have estimates because we just did not know. It's been so long since we have had to do something like this.
How old? 100?
Yeah, we had to do some tower work. And I only know this from like year 1 or 2 that I started, but it was not masonry. It was just the roofing piece. So yeah.
All right, so,
We've already got it, we just need to poll.
yeah, I think we're going to, we'll go ahead and vote on the motion to table. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. I would encourage the facilities team to meet ASAP. And moving on to 5.02, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that Mrs. Jamie Bolzer come before us to ask for approval for action item 5.02, Employee Assistance Program.
In front of you, you have a contract with Patrick Chimenti for our Employee Assistance Program. Our previous EAP counselor or provider notified us that the temporary Indiana license that was granted by Executive Order 20-05 due to COVID-19 expired due to the temporary licensure waivers ending. Thankfully, we were contacted by an employee at that same time, and we were contacted and in discussion with our previous provider, and were able to work out an immediate solution with Patrick Chimenti regarding the continuation of these services. We discussed a transitional period in order to make sure no lapse would exist in coverage to make sure our staff is comfortable with the services. So in front of you, you have that contract for approval.
Thank you.
I move that we approve the contract for Employee Assistance Program.
Motion by Nicole Stoltz, second by Jeff Schleifer. Any questions or comments? I'd say Patrick's been in the been a partner with RCS for a long time. Glad to see him back. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that Mrs. Bolzer come back before us to address item 5.03, the adjunct teaching permits.
Thank you. The 2022 Indiana General Assembly passed legislation providing school boards an option to fill vacant teaching positions by issuing adjunct teaching permits. Indiana Code 20-28-5-27 allows adjunct teachers to be used to fill vacant teaching positions, offer new programs or classes, or supplement a program currently being offered. This option was provided due to the teacher shortage statewide that is impacting all schools. RCS leadership presented for discussion with REA on August 3rd, 2022, the issuance of adjunct teaching permits as a solution to help recruit and retain qualified classroom educators. RCS wants to work to retain and promote paraprofessionals with career experience in the classroom. We currently have several paraprofessionals that are working to finish their 4-year degree that have expressed interest in filling teaching vacancies. However, based on the emergency permit guidance, they do not qualify. We have lost some paraprofessionals that are going to other school districts on an adjunct teaching permit because of the experience within the classroom. Additionally, we have other applicants with a multitude of career experience within the needed content area that are interested in filling vacancies. It is the recommendation of RCS that the Board of School Trustees authorize the use of adjunct teacher permits at the discretion of the superintendent or chief human resources officer to be ratified by the board. Further, it is recommended that adjunct teachers be issued an at-will employment agreement that is included as a part of the recommendation, as well as the permit that is to be ratified by the board. Adjunct teachers will be evaluated annually. RCS will post and seek to fill these vacancies annually with certified licensed teachers. If a vacant teaching position is filled the following year by a certified licensed teacher, internal candidates that fill adjunct teaching vacancies will be held harmless and returned to their prior role or parallel position within the school district if the movement was due to the position being filled by a certified licensed professional teacher. Adjunct teachers shall be placed on the non-certified salary schedule under Section 11, Employee Agreement, Classified Employees as exempt employees. You have that also in front of you for review and approval. Fringe benefits will be applied based on the Classified Contractual Employee Benefit Handbook and Personnel Handbook Classified Employee under Section 11. RCS will work to amend the Public Employee Retirement Fund, the PERF plan within PERS to allow this position to be PERF eligible once the plan has been successfully amended. That is also relative and parallel with the already existing fringe benefits schedules that exist for language pathologists and other similar type of calendar year personnel. RCS will annually pay the 3% of the salary to PERF as that member's contribution to the fund once successfully amended.
Thank you, Mrs. Moser.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve this. Motion by Jeff Slifer.
I'll second.
Second by Brad Walton. Any questions or comments?
I've got questions. So it looks like the rate is a percentage based on experience, etc. We would be paying into PERF for those folks, correct? This is frustrating because we're now put in a position to have to lower standards because this state and our legislative bodies have set up a situation where we're having a hard time getting teachers. So now we're having to work on doing this. My question would be, how long, from what I'm looking at, hearing and reading, if I'm an adjunct teacher, 0 credit hours and plus 4 years of experience, that's the
minimum.
That's
the minimum
guidance that the legislature.
What does 4 years of experience mean? I don't have to have any degree necessarily.
It's in content area
It's content
relative
defined,
to the position that's being offered.
And it needn't be in the classroom.
Well, that's what I'm asking. If I worked at Lilly for 4 years in a chemistry lab, then I could come in and I would fall under that.
We don't have much guidance as to what it is.
What would that
Somewhat
look like?
discretionary with the board.
Yeah, for an elementary teacher, I guess, what would 4 years?
A lot of times it would be like a paraprofessional that has, we have, say, a paraprofessional that's been in the elementary classroom for 14 years. And so that would be relative experience in that content area because they've been in an elementary classroom.
Per the state statute.
Yes, per the state statute.
So I'm really personally torn on this because I know experience matters, but also education matters. And I know when I took, became a teacher, it was not just content area, it was also in the education classes, how to teach.
And that is why also the progression that you can see as far as the fluctuation of the rate is directly related, not to the experience factor, because that's the minimum that the state provided. What was provided here was after that discussion that we had and taking into consideration the feedback that we received and putting the educational component as a variable rate, if you will, that's to be applied to the beginning teacher salary so that it fluctuates based off of that varying level of college experience. And then also we felt like it was an incentive measure for them to finalize their education and then also be certified in the licensure for education. So,
but our paraprofessionals already have to be already highly qualified. Many of them have already got some college experience. I mean, when I was looking at that, I was thinking, I think this is a wonderful way, especially when we have a shortage. In any school system that would have a shortage. As I look at this, I'm thinking, right now, over the years, the building principals have looked for building pairs to help cover classes and cover students. That's been an ongoing thing for years. Everybody does that.
yes.
So, but I think what makes this, I think this does two things. I think this gives them an incentive to finish their degree. And then secondly, it's at will employment. So to me, the choice is,
and we have
do we worry about not having a qualified educator in the classroom.
And we have the flexibility within the statute to determine if it would be at will, contractual, but in doing so and in that discussion, it's our obvious want and desire to place a certified professional teacher that's licensed into the classroom. So while this isn't the lasting solution, it is hopefully utilizing a
door that's gonna last for a long time, and so you guys can get
it's
teachers in
Ma'am,
there
ma'am.
have a degree.
This is
You
not part
guys
of the
are
discussion
putting
here.
warm bodies in our classrooms. That's exactly what you guys are doing. You guys are putting teachers in there. It's a warm body,
Ma'am,
so you can fill
please.
the position. This is a fucking joke.
So I guess my concern, because there's no limitation on this.
Yes, there is.
What is that?
It cannot exceed 1 year.
correct. It's an
And so even the
annual renewal.
benefit package, which talks about unused days rolling
Okay.
into the next contract year, is
So when we
is not
approve this,
necessarily applicable.
so when we approve this, we are saying this is what we are going to do for this year, and then this would have to come back to us again next
It's
year.
an annual renewal.
Okay.
That is looked at every year, and as indicated in the recommendation, that it would be posted annually as a certified position.
Yeah, I
That's
got
our-
that part. I
that's
didn't
our
realize
number
that
one
the whole proposal would be something that we would come
That's
back
why
and
I
look at.
felt it was best to do an at-will. The goal is to not lose our qualified paraprofessionals that
Sure.
are in the classrooms right now with our wonderful staff, and to put our wonderful staff at an even facing an even bigger problem. So
Yeah.
it's trying to limit the problem as we're getting it, as we're facing it. This is a tool in the toolbox that the Indiana General Assembly provided. So it's one that we're trying to utilize to fix the problems that we're faced with, that as you mentioned, were created by many different reasons outside of even our control. So and we do have some paraprofessionals that have exhibited some interest in this already.
Is it my understanding that there's some sort of we're working on a partnership where we can help them get those transition to teaching things? Because that's the piece that I don't see in here that I would like to see.
There's a separate grant that we're also working to work on in two separate components. One, we're looking to take a lead role on a transition to teaching grant that we can help offset those costs for their continued education, but then also partnering with IU East as they're taking a lead role, and in constant discussions with them in order to also utilize their lead grant role as well.
Yeah, because I think that's the piece, because to me, if I'm a para and I'm getting para pay, this is a significant step up from para pay. Okay, it's not fully licensed teacher pay, nor should it be, because these folks won't be licensed. But I would like to see the part of this be the road towards licensure, so that it gets folks because that's what we're saying we want to grow our own. So to me, if we can, because when I read this, it's like X number of credit hours. Like I said, I'm probably not going to leave Lily to come and teach science, but I conceivably could, and I would have, just like Ms. Brunton said, you can know a lot about science, a lot about math, a lot about any subject. That doesn't mean you can help other kids learn it.
Well, the other component of this that's statutory is that they have to be provided a mentor teacher, as well as the emergency teacher, the student teachers. So that there's definitely a mentor program that has to be utilized as well.
Yeah, but it's not highlighted in here in any way, and I mean that can mean a lot of things. Right? It's in the statute.
Indiana statute.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I want to make something very clear, and I commend Jamie because she's trying to put as good a spin on this as she can put. This is not the desirable way we want to operate.
No.
Okay? I mean, I want Kelly to understand that.
Yeah.
Back. This isn't something that we would want to do if there's any little honey with the vinegar, it is the fact that this allows us to incentivize our paras and hopefully push them along, if you will, incentivize them toward career development and keep them, because one of the provisions in the law, which is kind of unusual, is that an adjunct teacher can be under contract in more than one school corporation. They can be here in the morning, they can be at Northeastern in the afternoon if they want, if the situation allowed. So it's not the best, but there are benefits, tangential at best, but tangential at least. So,
And Mr. Cross is correct. That's why, after those many conversations, that's why it's written in the format it is, as an at-will, but also I wanted to protect our paras. If they're willing to step up and help and fill a need, especially the ones that have been here long term, that they're protected in a sense that they're not going to be penalized, that they're out of a job for filling this role this year. So that's why it was written purposefully as well. And obviously our number one goal is to put all licensed professional teachers in front of our students.
Right. And I hope you don't feel like I hope you don't feel like I'm grilling you, because you guys were all put in this position from lots of decisions that were made at a state level that have been made for a decade or more now. But yeah, I guess that would be my goal, and I see how that's making sense to me, that the path for one of these folks that would take this position would be either fill that spot best they can until they were then moved back to a spot that was held for them, or continue on their path and become a licensed teacher that is in part of the bargaining unit and all of that.
I don't think we're also given credit enough for the building principals and administration here, because they're not going to put an adjunct paraprofessional in a classroom that they don't feel like is prepared. I mean, that wouldn't be wise either. So.
No, I wouldn't suggest. That was not my suggestion in any way. I agree.
Mr. Moore, to your original point, if I can just add one final piece, and I historically would not return to the discriminatory practices of yesteryear that surrounds our profession when it comes to the fact that our profession still to this day is predominantly a profession that our female educators are in. And for years, there's been so many discriminatory practices based upon salary. And when you fast forward through and you see that right now there indeed is still a shortage of educators nationwide within our own country or within our own state. As of late last month, there were as many as 2,300 vacancies within our county, within our city. Of course, we have the shortages. We had a guest yesterday that addressed our entire corporation from the southern state of Kentucky, and he referenced that the University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville last year combined graduated 18 from their schools of education combined. And so that point being, no one is beating down the doors to become educators, and it's unfortunate. If indeed we were valued and appreciated like that of celebrities and athletes, of course we know that the profession would have folks flooding, but for the time being, well, of course that's definitely not happening. And so one of the things that in talking with Dr. Wild from IU East and talking with their Board of Trustees, talking with Ball State's Board of Trustees, Purdue's, I challenged them all to find ways to cover the cost of their undergraduates that are indeed in their schools of education, and also find ways to pay homage to those paraprofessionals who may have started on the track of being an educator, but life happened, and they may have gotten off track financially and or for other means. But indeed, as Mrs. Bolzer mentioned, right now seeing veteran, experienced paraprofessionals that are taking advantage of this opportunity in other districts, it's challenging. It's, like you said, it's one of those catch-22
Well, yeah, and it, you know, if only our state had a $6 billion surplus, right? But anyway.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board?
And IUE's, by the way, and University of Indiana, and they have stepped up to the plate. And as was mentioned,
That was what
they're going to be
that's what I
covering
thought. So
costs for parapay.
I guess that's my point is, if you go from parapay to that pay, that allows you a little more cushion. Maybe you don't. I mean, we've heard comments in previous about a para has to work a second job. I get it. It's I don't like that. The roles that paras play are fantastic, and if we can help a para get to a place where they can continue and become a teacher for us, I think that's great for us and great for them.
And then great for students,
Yeah.
corporation, fellow
A licensed
teachers.
teacher.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which I would agree with that pathway, definitely, but do we, I mean, as a parent, do you want a classroom where you have a non-qualified teacher in it? Just because we can't fill the
Right.
spot.
Well,
So I still, I guess, question that, whether that, I know that we have a shortage, but is that the right way for us to go about it? Because once that position's filled, then we're not posting anymore, so we don't know if a certified teacher maybe would have.
No, we are posted.
No, they are
they would be posted.
I think
Even after.
Every
Yes.
single one of
Yeah.
our open positions are currently posted for certified personnel. We don't have applicants.
yeah.
And it will be reposted the following year, regardless if we have an adjunct for a certified professional teacher. So our goal is to attract and to retain as many as possible, and there's a lot of work to be done on that by all of us to be able to attract and to retain. And I think that the best way to start attracting is to retain. And I know that this isn't perfect. I absolutely know it's a non-perfect solution to all of the outstanding issues that we are faced with together, that we're faced with. But I think it puts even more pressure on our teachers to say, I'm sorry you have to teach 60 students. I'm sorry you have to do it without a paraprofessional because we lost them also to the other surrounding communities. So I understand that this is a hard decision. It was a hard proposal to write. It was a hard proposal to present for discussion, but it was done so as collaboratively as I could so that it could address as many of those concerns in a way that looked out for our teachers and also looked out for our paraprofessionals, because we're only as good as we can serve them too, so that they can serve our students.
And I guess the alternative in my mind would be then, like, if this isn't the case, then who's filling that spot?
That
Right?
was one of the other things that
You're like a long-term substitute teacher or something.
And then that's one of the things that our guest presenter mentioned yesterday, is that there's a neighboring district where he is superintendent that starts school next Tuesday, and they currently have 600 vacancies in their corporation. So again, we indeed are, as has been anticipated for more than a decade now, we're in a profession that is challenging, to say the least.
To Member Slifer's point earlier too, I think we're not giving enough credit to our building level administrators, that they're not going to place just anyone into these classrooms. They're going to place somebody who they believe is worthy of it, believe that they can trust.
I agree with that, especially, this is actually somewhat similar to working on a limited license, which is how I started off in education, having a bachelor's degree in Spanish, but absolutely no education courses. So I was able to work as a Spanish teacher in the classroom with no background in education, but only having content knowledge. And then went back and got my master's in education. So my hope is that this is going to inspire people to be teachers.
In the career and tech ed world, is exactly what occupational specialist licenses are too.
So we've been doing some of this already in the years, but this is opening it up a little bigger and a little broader. But I guess I'm hopeful, but it is kind of. What's this going to look like?
And it's not a solution, it's one step.
It's a, yes, exactly.
It's not a solution, it's at best a Band-Aid.
It's a,
And it should be noted, those of you that are aware of the statutory scheme, this does not apply to any special education classroom teaching.
This is general ed. Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Yeah,
Motion passes 5-1. Moving on to 5.04, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that our Director of Exceptional Education, Mrs. Elizabeth Markworth, address us with regard to action item 5.04, speech and language services.
Good evening. Tonight in front of you, you have the contract for speech and language services with Presence Learning. Presence Learning is a leading provider of virtual therapy for speech and language services nationwide. We have partnered with Presence Learning for the past 3 school years and would like to continue to utilize their services for this school year. So it is a recommendation that the Board of School Trustees approve the contract for speech and language services for the 22-23 school year.
Thank you.
I move that we approve this contract.
Motion by Nicole Stoltz,
Second.
second by Kristen Brunton. Any questions or comments? Now we can't let her off that easy. I'm just teasing. So this will be our 3rd year, correct?
Yes.
Do you see, I mean, and I know we made the adjustments last year to hire our own folks. Do you have our usage rates or what's the trend? Are we using this more or less, I guess?
Well, we hired a speech language pathologist this year, but we also have one that was working part-time that then moved to a different position.
Okay.
So we do have a few more seats that we're utilizing this school year in comparison to last school year. And so we're still actively looking for speech language pathologists.
Thank you. Anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to 5.05, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that Assistant Superintendent Mrs. Don Santini come before us with action item 5.05, the athletic handbook.
Thank you. It is recommended that the Board of School Trustees accepts the revisions to the Richmond Intermediate and Richmond High School Athletic Handbooks for 2022-2023 as presented by Mr. Ben Whistle and Mr. Luke Robertson. The main difference is that the 3 separate handbooks for the middle and intermediate schools have been condensed into one handbook so that all relevant information can be accessed in one place. All proposals to both handbooks changes are highlighted in yellow. And I also believe that Mr. Whistle and Mr. Robertson are here this evening. If you have any questions regarding those changes, we can address them.
I'll make the motion. We'll update that. Or we approve the updated. Motion by Jeff Slifer.
I'll second.
Second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments? I'll just say, it looks like it was just kind of language cleanup. I didn't really see anything major.
Yeah, changes were minimal.
Is there anything the athletic office would like to see moving forward, pursuing? I know we've talked about consistency amongst our coaching staffs and things. I mean, kind of what's your, since we have you here, what's your kind of, some short-term vision, if you wouldn't mind? And I don't mean to put you on the spot.
But you're on the spot.
Welcome, Mr. Whistle. Welcome, sir.
Well, I guess just, I think there could be better collaboration from middle school, intermediate, middle school, high school. I think that would be one of the visions up front. Secondly, obviously there's certain things facility-wise and so on and so forth that should be a push. I feel like to advance the athletic department, it's a very dynamic situation. There's a lot of working parts, that's for sure. If I went on beyond that general statement, I would just continue to run on from small item to the next. So I'll just leave it at that. But communication lines, I think that's another very, very big topic. Taking on some things to address that, just as far as the who, when, where, what type of information from one respective sport to the next, one season to the next, that could advance.
We're going to have to get you a mega.
Us greatly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, growing up in that household, you were not that soft spoken. There's no way.
Well, I didn't get to talk much.
I mean, I'll just conclude. I appreciate the work both of you have done. I mean, I know it's kind of been a quick transition, and to see that firming up and solidifying is super positive for me, because there's a number of our kids that is why they come to school, and the relationships with the coaches, the staffs, that makes a big difference in a number of people's lives, and I appreciate it as much as the band kids. I mean, athletics is very much a similar situation, and I know I'm very appreciative of both of you. Just wanted to say so. Anything else?
I guess the only thing I will echo that I heard tonight that really stuck with me is just from a retention standpoint of leadership, the coaches. That is how, in fact, we would advance on that front, because I have seen it many times where there's very successful programs with adequate but not superior things like facilities, but are able to go beyond other places with more superior facilities and things like that. But it's the guidance and retention of those leaders. So that's a huge goal. So, all right.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One thing that coming into this new role of mine as like the intermediate assistant athletic director that I'm seeing as an issue with us is our stipends we have for 5th and 6th grade sports. We're really trying to build a much stronger feeder system here in the school district, but there's certain stipends on there that really aren't going to work for future long-term goals, such as like football. We have one $1,000 stipend for intermediate football, and I think a lot of our football people here would know that you need at least 3 or 4 coaches to properly supervise a kid, and it is difficult to convince people to volunteer their time without them getting something out of it, even if they want to help the kids. We have to help them financially as well. So I think going forward, we need to look at the stipends for 5th and 6th grade and try and boost those up and get some more positions there, so we can really make our feeder system as strong as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Anything else on the handbooks? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Down to 5.06, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I come before you this evening to ask for approval of action item 5.06, the overnight field trip to Bloomington, Indiana, that our soccer program will be taking on September 2nd and 3rd, per your approval, to compete in the Hoosier Cup soccer tournament as presented.
Thank you, sir.
I make a motion that we approve action item 5.06, the overnight field trip.
And I'll second it.
Motion by Kristen Brunton, second by Nicole Stoltz. Any questions or comments?
No, I'm excited. They've been doing the Hoosier Cup tournament for quite a while now. I'm excited to see we're going to be competing in that again. And best of luck.
I think it's been a few years since a victory, but it was part of one of those teams, and that's Hoosier Cup's been a long tradition, and traditionally the team has performed very well. So, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. 5.07, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that Assistant Superintendent Mrs. Don Santing come back before us for action item 5.07, IU East MOU.
Thank you. It is recommended the Board of School Trustees accepts the Memorandum of Understanding between Richmond Community Schools and the trustees of Indiana University as presented for the 22-23 school year. The purpose of this arrangement is to create an early-in pathway to IU East for the school's college track junior and seniors. In particular, the program is intended to encourage students from underserved, first-generation college or historically underrepresented populations to attend college. The school benefits by having the opportunity to offer college credit bearing educational courses to qualified high school students. IU East benefits from maintaining an academic relationship with the school and by developing a relationship with college-ready high school students who may consider IU East as their college of choice. The students benefit by receiving free to them college credit courses that introduce the college environment, stimulate learning, and encourage future academic achievement. The purpose of this arrangement is to provide up to 2 courses per semester of 3 credit-hour college-level courses to no more than 30 qualifying students per semester during the 22-23 academic year. To qualify, students must be a junior or senior pursuing a Core 40 or academic honors diploma. Students must have a minimum GPA of a 3.0 on a 4.0 scale or a 2.5 GPA and an accompanying recommendation from the school's guidance counselor. The number of credit hours and students will be reevaluated each year and may be adjusted based on IU East's course availability. And I will just add, this was a new program last year, partnership. We launched in January. We had 5 students that participated. There were a few juniors and a few seniors, and they each took 1 course and successfully completed. So we did meet last week, Mrs. Brazel, Mrs. Whoopi, and 2 representatives from IU East to revisit and kind of reflect on that experience and also talk about opportunities to grow and include more students for this school year.
Did they take the class at IU East, or it was kind of the credit class at the high school?
They took the class at IU East.
Okay, great.
And that's what this would be set, right? So anybody that's involved in this would go to high school during the day and then they'd pick up a class somewhere on their own. Okay.
Yes, and we did talk about scheduling what was the best way and like timing during the day. So we talked about like the 2 o'clock course versus, a morning course and how that works in collaboration with the high school schedule. So if you wanted to go to IU East to take a course, how does that fit with the Bell schedule to get you back and taking courses? So we're still trying to fine tune the timing of that. It's a great opportunity, but yes, in person at IU East. They do offer online, but we haven't taken advantage of that yet.
Just to explain to the public how that would work then, so their student would possibly be arriving at the high school later because they've been at IU East for a class, or they would be departing earlier.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay.
But they could also take one in the evening.
They could.
Right. Okay. But we would excuse them from that time, like, because a lot of kids are finishing. Like if you're meeting these qualifications, you've typically gotten all your credits, so you could have your credits lined out and have space in your schedule already.
Yes.
Okay.
And the student can choose what sort of course, I guess, whatever they're interested in, or they're beginning first year seminar classes, or the basics.
It's the basics for the most part, but it also just depends on IU East's course availability and their professors. So I think they've stuck to basically those core English math courses.
So if
I will say there was one exception. They had a student, this was kind of a unique story, that wanted to take information technology, and for some reason it wouldn't work with their schedule, and so Mrs. Brazel was able to work with IU East to have that student take that course. So that was more of an individualized track, and it was successful. So I think there's some opportunity there to kind of expand in other directions outside of the core.
So assuming we move forward, how would a parent who's the 17 parents that might watch this, how would they how would they go about going, hey, I want my kid to take a class. They got 3.0, I want them to take one.
I believe the high school administrative team is looking at who would be candidates for the program and then reaching out to them. There are some that are continuing that are juniors. So if anyone has an interest and believes they might meet those qualifications, I would ask that they reach out to their guidance counselor or one of our school administrators, and then we can have that conversation. But we definitely want to start encouraging and letting people know that this opportunity is out there, especially for freshmen and sophomore parents, like, hey, this is something that you can be looking forward to as a junior, so that it's not starting the school year and then trying to figure it out. So we also talked about how we might be able to do some open houses second semester for sophomores and parents to kind of recruit.
And in time, as was mentioned, notifying our middle and intermediate families of such an option so that they can begin to start to think and prepare. One of the things that we were very successful in being able to do for such options and or even 21st century options is introduce a lot of these programs to families much earlier, so that, to your point, Mr. Moore, they can indeed inform, educate themselves, and learn as to what they need to.
Well, we're already pushing the 21st century scholarship, so, you know, you gotta have that by the end of the 8th grade anyway, so. Hey, in addition to the money that you could get to go to your 4-year school, you could also pick some up ahead of time.
The goal is to notify, inform, and educate our families, and definitely our students, of the opportunities that we would have loved to have taken advantage of when we were in school. There are a plethora now for them really to jump into.
Mrs. Sonsini, can you address the the transportation portion? How exactly would that work?
That right now is the responsibility of the school. The school will be responsible for arranging and when necessary providing transportation.
That's what it says, and so how does
I
that
think that,
work?
I mean, most of the kids that went last year drove
That's
because
what
they
it
chose
says.
to.
Right.
We have had students that we've transported. I would have to check on that because I'm not sure that that's what.
I don't think that we've provided transportation from the school now that you say that. I believe
Okay.
it's the students that have provided that transportation themselves
Okay.
or the families.
That was
That's one of the things that we're in conversation with, not only IU East, but some of the other higher institutions of academia, is helping them understand that that's a major piece, just being able to get
So
the
is that-
students to the campus.
So if we are approving this, are we not then committing our CS to transport? Like a kid says, I want to do this, want to take this class. It's at 7 o'clock at night. By approving this, are we saying, yeah, we'll bring a white bus and pick you up? I hope we're not, right? I'm just saying, that seems like.
It was my understanding that this was the same memo of understanding from last year, so
Okay.
if you'd like, I can revisit that, if we need to.
I would feel more comfortable with that language struck if that's not.
Right.
Cleaned up, yeah. I just don't want us to commit to something that we're not ready to be able to. I mean, we're having a hard time finding bus drivers and stuff as it is now.
For the most part, the students that actually, all the students
Right.
that attended last year went during the day.
Mhm.
But again, they all drove themselves.
Right.
So I think we just need to be prepared with whatever we want it to be.
It could be
We
it's
can
a
handle
student
that.
that is unable to drive themselves, and I mean, I think there should be some discussion as, how can we serve that student?
Can we do it?
But are you okay can we table it?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to table.
I move that we table this, revisit it as soon as possible.
Motion by Nicole Stoltz,
Second.
second by Brad Walton. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item 5.08, Meridian Health Services Contract. Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I come before you this evening to ask for approval of action item 5.07, the Meridian Health Services contract. After exercising due diligence over the course of several months regarding health services, again, I come before you to ask for approval of the Meridian Health Services school-based health clinic contract as presented.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion to accept.
Motion by Jeff Schleifer,
I'll second.
second by Brad Walton. Any questions or comments?
Do you, any chance you still have the timeline that you read off last time? Because my impression is, I mean, when we talked about this at the last meeting, this is something that we worked diligently with the nurses. The nurses went and visited. The nurses asked questions. We answered questions, went back and forth. Kind of had the impression everybody was on board and okay with this. They were all offered the opportunity. Some it sounds like most chose to just leave. I don't know, but
I
you don't. Okay.
I have it on email, I can open it up here.
I think that's correct. I think,
Yeah.
The board administration met beyond anything I've seen to to answer every question the nurses had, to follow up, and to see the nurses either retire or not choose to even interview with Meridian, and with the corporation. I mean, it's fine that they don't have to work for us, but to give the impression that they were, and then just abandon ship at the last minute is very disappointing. In retrospect, if we'd approved the contract in December, our first quarter, we wouldn't have had any issues.
But I guess all I just want to clarify is that there was ample opportunity for folks that had problems with it to discuss those, and I felt like we answered a lot of those questions. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah. And to your point, Mr. Morey, and also to Mr. Weber's point, this was really a great example of what we have been exercising for several months now, which is meaningful dialogue, meaningful discussion, exercising and exhausting every opportunity to educate ourselves before, and most importantly, educating those that such decisions have effect on, to make sure that we are indeed prepared
and
as best as possible. And yes, to your point, we were indeed expecting and believing that the nursing corps was indeed returning. The contract even states that the nurses were to be retained, and that was one thing that we indeed were not going to move into without having such assurances.
And is it did we have a nurse at every building today? Is that?
Without a doubt, Mr. Morey.
So every building today, first day of school, had a school nurse there.
Yes, sir. Interesting enough, the Human Resources Department, Cabinet, Meridian Health Services, as well as others, pulled together and had been preparing for such scenarios, but pulled together to provide our corporation with a record number of school nurses. We now have 13 school nurses, which is up from, I believe, 8 or 9 from last year. Most importantly, of the nurses that we currently have within our schools, many of them are registered nurses, as well as have experience and credentials that previous nurses may not have. And so we indeed extend our gratitude to the nurses that have made the decision to move on for years. As we know, they loved on our corporation, loved on our kids and our families, and that is time that we, again, are so appreciative of. However, with what we have now and with what we had today, it's a level of professionalism that, like before, is centered on student care. And with this particular contract, it also focuses on faculty and staff care, because with the Meridian Health Services, they offer opportunity for our faculty and staff to take advantage of their extended services per their approval.
I do have that timeline. You want me to share it?
Sure.
Again? We can. December 13th, 2021, Meridian met with Dr. Wright. March 16th, 2022, Meridian presented at the public school board meeting. April 26th, Dr. Wright and board members toured Meridian Health Services in Muncie schools. May the 11th, 2020, a Google Meet with questions from the nurses for Meridian with Dr. Wright and our school nurses. And May 24, 2022, a tour of the Meridian Health Services in Muncie with nurses and board members and Dr. Wright. June 7th, 2022, the nurses met with the executive committee. And July 5th, 2022, the nurses met with Meridian for questions. And then I believe we've had 1 or 2 more board meetings where we discussed the focus forums for discussions.
Thank you. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I just remembered you reported that last time. And I heard it. Somebody said that everybody left. That's not accurate as well, correct?
No, sir. We indeed had a nurse that committed to staying and a nurse that returned after she was provided with accurate information. And so we had actually 2 nurses that had served with us for many years, stay on board. And
So one nurse just changed positions, I believe.
yes. We have that particular nurse exercised tremendous amount of leadership, patience, and selflessness.
Well, kudos to them. I appreciate the following through, and I hope that we can I hope that Meridian and our agreement with Meridian can help, and they can find good employment and it sounds like better benefits and potentially better pay as well. So
if indeed by
appreciate
you
them
all,
sticking around.
If indeed by you all liking this contract and provides us with an opportunity, or provides Meridian with an opportunity to improve upon what has already been an amazing experience based on the results they brought to the table, I think that our corporation is in good hands.
Well, I mean, the actions, I mean, obviously, a lot of this was a very short timeline, and to have them jump through hoops, because I don't know what it took to pull those nurses here, but in the medical field, it took a act of God, I'm sure.
Well, and again, there were contingency plans and contingency ideas, but yes, to your point, folks strung into service for kids.
I mean, it's the kind of partnership we're looking for. I mean,
Well, Mrs. Tuttle definitely went above board, I think.
Well, I think it's also important to point out that down the road, if we feel like we can terminate it, and we're not, this is not something that we're committing to for multiple years. At any point, we can terminate this contract with, I think, pretty reasonable, probably more reasonable than we could hire our own nurses back in the time that we would need after we said we wanted to terminate it. So I think.
Actually, it's a 5-year agreement. I don't want everybody to.
No, I didn't. Yeah, but.
It's 120 days without cause termination.
Right.
Well, but there's a termination clause during the term.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I don't want. Sorry if I appreciate that clarification. I'm not saying that we're like, hey, we're going day to day. Yes, we're agreeing on a term, which is only fair. But there is, if we just go, hey, if it turns out this is a mess, we can terminate, and we have 120 days to do it. In my opinion, it's probably going to take more than 120 days to find enough nurses to cover that anyway.
And the one thing Meridian continued to state is that they seek descriptive feedback. Mm-hmm. They want to know how indeed they can improve upon their services, as well as want to know of the positive experiences folks have had, and more importantly, and that's embedded within our understanding, is that there's going to be bi-weekly communication, if not more, if necessary.
Good.
Thank you.
The 5 years is somewhat precedented. That was an initial term we did with Sodrel. Mm-hmm. Only because when they're starting a program like that, there is an initial investment that's going to take a while. Even though we were providing the buses with Sodrel, there's still an investment these folks are making considerable, even though we're providing the facilities that are necessary. So, but again, it's a 120-day termination without cause if we needed to.
Anything else?
I guess I have questions about, is there going to be construction, or do we know a timeline for
The school-based clinics?
Yes.
I know that in collaboration, we had a cabinet member working alongside our HR department, Mrs. Scalf and Mrs. Bolzer, were able to give Ms. Suttle a tour of our facilities throughout the district. And what I recall from conversation with Mrs. Suttle, a standard school clinic is really all they need. And I haven't heard at this point that much renovations, if any, would be necessary.
So far, they reported today, after the end of the day, that it was a successful day. All buildings, the reports that I received, all buildings were successfully maintained and staffed, and also that they did spend part of their day as well going through the clinic and the space and making sure that the supplies, were where they needed to be, and also beginning to look at what the layout, if there was any minor alterations that need to be made. But
we'll see a lot of new equipment, I believe. about renovation.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. They right now are assessing as they say in the South, they're getting the lay of the land, which was part of their implementation plan that was presented. Typically, they would have loved to have been afforded more time, but they're making do with what it is that they have before them, and they're definitely performing at a high rate already. Yes.
Thank you. Anything else? Hearing nothing, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to 5.09, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I come before you with action item 5.09, the request for approval for alcohol services for the Richmond Symphony Orchestra for September 7th, October 15th, November 19th of this year, January 28th, and February 25th of next year, as presented.
I make a motion that we approve action item 5.09, the request for approval for alcohol services from the RSO.
Motion by Kristen Brunton,
I'll second.
second by Keith Moran.
President Weber,
Yes.
I don't want to delay action on this, but I do want to make a couple of observations that maybe you can go ahead and approve it, subject to. The certificate of liability insurance is a general liability. Our policy requires that there be a dram shop coverage, which is legal liability for liquor. And I'm sure that it's just maybe a matter of getting a different endorsement form than they provided, because I know that the Van Vliet typically is frequently used carrier for people that have utilized our policy to have that. So with that, I mean, I think that just needs to be substituted and made a part of the file ultimately. And secondly, we have a provision that says alcoholic beverages must cease to be distributed an hour before the event ends. Well, this entire event, if they don't run over on their concert, is only 75 minutes. So I might suggest that you waive that and instead have a proviso that alcoholic beverages will not be distributed after 10:30 p.m. because I think the way they have it structured now, it's almost going to be putting a lot of pressure on the waiters and waitresses, I think.
Well, and the whole concept, I talked to Monica Coachline, the director, and the whole concept is to have some champagne available with after the concert, each of these concerts. And so that kind of defeats the purpose if you're, so I love the idea of 10:30 being kind of, that's ample time.
And I think given the nature of it, the concern we had for the having a bracketed time frame is less weighty in this factual context.
So do we need to make?
There's been a motion. I had a question about the security. As I understand, they provide no security at the events.
They are required when they have, it's a requirement of your alcohol policy that they have security at least an hour before and at least an hour after or until the last person is gone. So I actually spoke with the school resource officers today just to verify that they're aware of that. I spoke with Mr. Cook as well. He was going to touch base with Ms. Coachline and make sure that they had that established, that if they were not already using officers, that ours would be available for them.
Okay. Totally answers my question.
I have a question based on, so I believe RAM in the past, when they have utilized their own people, RAM, and not the SRO officers. Is that not okay?
Are they officers?
They're not officers,
It's probably not okay according to your policy.
Okay, so our policy says that we have, or they have to have security officers. They're not,
Not just members of their community, I guess is how I would say it, or
they're employees,
It
their
says
staff.
security, it says security officers in your policy.
Okay. So is that something, as a board, we might want to look at revisiting because that might not be cost effective for them. If they have to hire 2 officers for 4 or 5 hours, all of a sudden that's a very expensive event.
That wouldn't be the direction I would go, but we can have that discussion. I think that, and that's, I appreciate you clarifying it, because I think adding alcohol to the events, I think you could say, could alter the liability, and I think it makes the security officer that much more important. So,
Well, the good news is we don't have to make that decision tonight. We can.
But maybe, why don't we put that on the docket to discuss at some point, because I really.
It doesn't affect this contract.
In speaking with Monica, it does affect this contract in the sense that I don't know that they will be serving alcohol if they're needing to hire officers for that amount of time. They're not, they're giving it away, for one, so they're providing free champagne, which is already, costly. And then to have to also pay out of pocket for security.
I guess when they request this, do they get the parameters for, I mean, is there a form that they read and it says, hey, you have a hired officer or an officer and this is the time frame? Okay. Yes.
And we have SROs at all our events that run in Civic Hall, correct?
I'm sorry, say that one.
We provide SROs for all the events that are run through the corporation.
Here of late, we indeed have provided safety and security as roles at such events. That's something that we indeed have been exercising in some of our activities from last year.
I would think for people utilizing our facilities, the same standard.
I think that's a touchy subject. I can understand both sides, but I think if we're going to allow them the use for alcohol, then I think that's a fair requirement.
Well, if it's what's in our policy currently, then I mean it is what it is until we
revisit
we can have a conversation about it. But
revisit it.
as it stands, the expectation would be that they would have that. Correct?
I think we just need to look at revisiting the conversation. If we're wanting to open that door and allow people to have the use of alcohol at an event, I just don't want to make it not doable from a financial perspective. So
I think though that isn't as the RCS board, that would be up to them. So they're just asking to use our facility and then we can tell them how much it will cost. So they choose, Mr. Hamilton does that with all of the paperwork and they can choose to not use it at that point. So once this is approved, he would go back and provide them all that information. So as far as the cost, but I don't think that as the board, if they're requesting to use the facility, whether they want to or not based on financials isn't something you will know unless you are at their table, which at that point you have to watch the conflict of interest piece. And so that's where I feel like we have to just be aware that that's their choice at that point. They're just making the request. Whether you want to approve the request or not is what's here.
But a motion has been made and seconded, correct?
To approve.
Do we need do we need to amend, does that need to be amended with the caveat that the?
Well, I think I suggested it be subject to the provision of a proper certificate of insurance, which I think is not, that's just an oversight probably.
Yeah.
The security issue is a different piece, although I would throw out, every time we have an RSO symphony or we have an opera symphony, do we require security to be provided 2 hours before the symphony or an hour before the symphony?
I think the Proudly Presenting series does. I don't believe.
See, I think this event, as far as I'm concerned, starts when the alcohol starts, the reception starts, because that's the event that we're talking about. No one's questioned the fact that they're going to have a symphony on these given dates. And well, that doesn't alleviate the point you make. It does mitigate a little the financial impact, because I would think 2 officers, 2 man hours apiece would be 4 hours, which is still a cost, but it's not like 20, or if you have 4 hours for 8 of them, 9 or 10. So but again, I think and I don't know what the policy says, to be quite honest. I don't recall that detail. Whether it says I doubt that it says SROs. It may
It just
indicate
says
that.
officers.
It may just say
The security
officers.
officers.
Security
Doesn't-
officer.
Doesn't say SROs.
It would have
says
to be an
security
SRO
officers.
at all.
Right.
I don't believe it has to be an SRO, but I'd have to go back and look at the policy.
So we can put the policy, we can take that to the agenda meeting and see if we want to talk about it at the next meeting. But as far as the request, I think, are we ready to vote?
And just for
Yes,
point
sir.
of clarification, I do apologize, Mrs. Scalford, I hear you saying this, is that the first step, as is the protocol now as it stands, for the Richmond Symphony Orchestra to be informed of such costs is for our Board of Governors to approve this, and then, as I heard you say, Mr. Hamilton, then reach
Yeah,
out.
well, based on their request, they receive a waived fee on the portion that is the facility cost. And so there is no cost at this time. Now, if they wanted to use our officers, that's where there would be a cost.
I see.
They did not request to use our officers on the form, so that's just something he would touch base on and make sure. Mr. Cook was already gonna reach out to Monica today, just to ask, and let her know that it's available, but they don't have to use our officers.
So do we have parameters defining what are security officers then? Or is that left to interpretation?
I would assume that is not anywhere in your policy, but I don't have an answer for that because I read the policy also as a security officers. There's not a definition for a security officer in it.
Because
I think that we have to be careful, because if you open the door too far, then that will move in other directions as well for other things. So.
Yeah, their form says their security personnel will be 2 RSO staff for each of the forms. And that doesn't really define what security personnel.
Right,
To me,
that's
very vague.
But that can be a conversation when we bring this back to the agenda meeting,
I
right?
think, yeah, I mean, I would interpret that as a uniformed, either private security officer, RPD officer, sheriff, deputy, or an RSO.
Well,
I wouldn't interpret it that
I wouldn't
way.
interpret it
I
that way.
think, oh, you two
I mean,
are
if
in
you
charge
go
of
to-
security.
Right.
A volunteer with a staff shirt on, that's not what we're talking about.
I think the practice would be it's typically an officer, frankly, on off duty most of the time.
Yes.
And from either the sheriff, RPD, and even some retired, recently retired.
Okay.
I mean, that's the way it is in Coleman, that's the way it is at Raper Center. County facilities, I'm really comfortable saying that.
Whereas like at the Richmond Art Museum, if you go to the museum, the only people that are providing security from, one of the $100,000 paintings being stolen are the staff members.
Right.
Which would also be providing security for alcohol being distributed.
Well, also, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I would argue if they're providing security or not, but that,
But
have
you
that
see-
discussion.
Well, it's just like the person they have checking IDs that would be security at a club, whatever.
Right.
But again,
something to discuss.
we could do that when it's on the agenda.
All right.
All right,
So you vote?
back to the additional discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to policy review and update. We have 2 policies on first reading. So, read a long motion, I'd be happy to entertain.
I will make a motion to move to second reading policy 5320, purchases of supplies and materials, and policy 4840, criminal organization activity in schools, to second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I'll second that. A second by Jeff Schleifer. Any questions or comments on either of those 2 policies? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item 6.03, policy 5471, employee expense reimbursement. On second reading and approval. Make the motion that we approve it. Motion by Jeff Schleifer,
I'll second.
second by Keith Morey. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
And again, that takes
Remember,
the
30 days.
mileage reimbursement to
That's in the guidelines.
the federal rate and shortens the expectation is those expense reports are turned in within 30 days. So, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. All right. Let's change papers. Moving on to old business, our board reports and old business. We'll go through our working groups, educational planning.
We're scheduled to meet Monday. Correct?
That
With
is
school
correct.
starting, most of our meetings were postponed.
Right.
All right.
That is all I have to update.
Nicely done.
That's all we need.
Concise.
So emphatically too.
All right. Moving on to building and grounds.
Well, we just found out tonight, so we got a topic.
So what does
Add an
everyone's
agenda item.
Thursday and Friday look like?
Friday at 10, would that be an option for people?
I have to do afternoons, please. My mornings are already booked. Kevin is not available tomorrow until after 2:30.
I'm not available tomorrow, but
Okay.
I could
Could you
probably
do
make
Friday?
myself work Friday afternoon or Monday.
Could we do Friday at 2?
Well, from memory, I don't have my calendar in front of me.
Okay.
Jessica.
Friday at 1:30?
But that's also Brett too, right?
Friday at 2.
Or Friday at 1:30. I'm trying to avoid dismissal because I have duties that I still have to attend to. So, sorry, it's first week of school.
It's first. Well, and
What's
Monday,
the-
I'm a lot more open, so.
Monday is really rough for me.
Yeah, I'm just saying we need to get it done quick.
Are you able to do 2 or 1:30 Friday?
Yeah.
Goal, Brad.
Yeah.
I could squeeze in 2. I might be a little bit late. I've got something right before that.
You can start hammering out some of the questions. Maybe 1:30.
Well, I think the building and grounds group there's a lot of topics that we need to start really discussing. So this one should be just a short meeting of just this one agenda item.
Right.
Yes, I mean,
All right.
I agree.
So
We
2
got some
o'clock.
stuff at Dennis that we're gonna have to discuss that's going to the finance, so.
2 o'clock. Okay, I'll make it at 2.
All right.
2?
2 o'clock.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mrs. Scott. Finance working group.
We're gonna schedule a meeting soon, aren't we, Karen?
We are, but I've got to work on a grant, and I've got to work on a budget, and I've got, before you can even have the meeting, so yes, we will.
Yeah, we got topics for.
We could do
our
a
budget.
doodle poll for that one.
Yeah,
Finance is
Love
usually we're pretty
maybe
good.
No, there's a lot,
push just a bit, so I
there's a
can
lot of
get
stuff
to it.
coming up on the finance.
We try
It
to work
is, but I
around
gotta
Mrs.
get it
Scott's
done,
schedule best
so.
we can.
Yeah, so, to be
you
determined
a
if
couple
everyone's
weeks.
okay with that, thank you, I would
Maybe
appreciate
Kristen and I
that.
just show up in her office and help her.
But you
That'd
can-
be great, I'll put you to work.
You can preview them Friday.
That's debit goes here, credit goes there.
Do
Oh,
you
I'm
file?
good.
Do you file? Have you filed?
7.04 is what?
Yeah, marketing working group.
Oh.
I think we've done that since our last meeting. I don't think we have any news. Do we, Miss? Next Wednesday. Okay. That sounds good. Preview of upcoming meeting and events.
I did think we should maybe talk about board retreat, just some of the things, just kind of some highlights from that.
I appreciate the reminder. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I got a little excited after that.
No, that's right, go for it, go for it.
So, Ms. Stoltz, if you like to.
Yeah,
Have the
so we met on Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and just kind of covered several topics that were just things that we needed to look at and rehash. And we can all talk about what we got out of it or whatever, but it was a great time to connect and also just continue to put the core values in front of us, our mission statements, our beliefs, and remind ourselves what we're doing and where we're heading. Some things that we focused on were some avenues for better communication, specifically board communication, and talked about some of that. And then also talked about expanding our middle school offerings, what we're doing as far as, looking at some different things for kind of putting some things together as far as, we talked about Spanish, which is near and dear to my own heart, of course. And then perhaps wood shop, perhaps, vocational modules. So just kind of talked about some of that. Others can chip in. Yeah, what were...
I think all those things are things that we'll discuss. I think we did a lot of brainstorming, stuff that'll go on to the education planning work group. That's scheduled to chat and, roll out from there. I think we did some good, another round of good, Dr. Rice led us in a good team building activity. I think that was.
Dr. Wright, that was.
Sorry.
Dr. Rice.
I thought I said Rice. Did I say Rice? I thought I did.
Rice and Wright sound a lot
Rice.
alike. So.
We both have the same haircut.
Right.
So, yeah, wanting to implement study buddies again. So that would be something that people in the community can start thinking of how you'd love to jump in and help, because we'd love to have you. So that was something we talked about. Kristen, anything else?
I was just thinking about the strategic plan that we talked about. That's kind of our focus now. Kind of bringing everything back to that. So just,
Before we move on, any other board reports or old business? That's it. All right. Moving on to the preview of upcoming meeting and events.
President Member Trustees, our next scheduled board meeting is Wednesday, August 24th. And at that meeting, we indeed will be coming before you for approval of the strategic goals, not only for our central office, but also district-wide. We indeed have, and by then we'll have provided our new leadership in several of our schoolhouses, as well as the teacher just an opportunity to take one last glance at those goals before we unveil and package and move in such direction. So we look forward to it. So I have.
All right. Anything else?
President Weber?
Yes.
I don't want to intrude on Dr. Wright's bell ringer, but I would like to address the board shortly after the bell ringer.
Okay.
Before we adjourn, please.
Of course. I had an opportunity to get out to all our schools except Baxter. Apologize. But new principals, we have some challenges, but man, the buildings, especially the elementary schools, they are great environments. I mean, they truly are. I mean, they're safe, they're secure. People care and love the kids. Preschoolers, man, I dealt with a group of preschoolers this morning. They're so small you forget. But we talked about backpacks, and they all had their own reusable water bottles. How cool is that? I mean, and they're using the machine. I'm like, wow, something we're doing right. So just really appreciative of, as in the social studies hall at the high school. I mean, there's all these, young people and mindset, and I'm like, man, that's where I want to teach. I want to be on that floor in that way. I mean, just looked fun. They're just laughing and carrying on, and I think we need to get back to where school is fun and we enjoy this. Our people enjoy this. The kids enjoy it. I mean, and I think we've made great strides. And so it was a very hopeful couple days getting out and going to the open houses and going to the first day. And so I hope we can. We hit lots of speed bumps, but let's keep.
The first day is the hardest one.
Keep going the right direction.
Every day you get a little more routine. Everybody gets the hang of things.
I mean, these preschoolers, they're killing me this morning. I mean, we were talking about superheroes and hairdos and new shoes and new dresses, and it was just like, they were wearing me out. So fortunately I had to spend the whole day with them, because I might not be here today. But no, it was just, I appreciate the principals and the teachers so much, and it's not easy. I mean, and so it's nice to see. But the kids, we had one young girl, Vale, that did not want to enter the building, and she had not entered by the time I left, and maybe I was in the building. That was the problem. So I thought I should exit. But just, I mean, you see the tears and the parents. I mean, it first day is super cool. I mean, it's just a unique experience, and so I'm appreciative of you guys, what we're trying to do here, and when you can see it, we're making a difference. So thank you.
Can I add about Dennis? Because I know Brad and I were at Dennis and we handed out schedules, and there was a lot of excitement there with students to be back. And I know there's challenges there, but the students are there, and the schedules went out very nicely. I think all of I was in the big gym, you were in the small gym. Within 15 minutes, everyone had their schedule and helping with lockers. There's just a lot of excitement, to be back at school at any age.
That's great to hear. Mr. Cross, I guess I'll turn it over to you. Or you want to go with Dr. Wright first?
I will let him do the bell ringer. I would
Okay.
like to end on a positive note if possible, and I'll speak after that.
All right.
All right, Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, as was just alluded to, and indeed I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our faculty, staff, students, parents, guardians, and stakeholders for the humility, self-service, and resiliency that they have indeed exercised throughout the course of us coming back to school. However, at the same time, that same humility, self-service, and resiliency has been exercised by our building level leadership as well as our central office leadership, seeing the sacrifices that our leadership has made to indeed tackle challenges that are enormous. If the average person only understood and knew what goes into, and as Mr. Moore just mentioned, as a current school administrator, if you don't mind me sharing with the millions around the world, there are day-to-day challenges that you wouldn't think happen, but indeed they do. And to know that we have central office, building level, teacher leaders, and folks in our schoolhouses that are committed to the cause of again, selflessly serving students. I couldn't be more prouder. Of course, as Mrs. Brunton alluded to, we will indeed continue to attack and challenge ourselves to find solutions to the unique problems that oftentimes are out of our control. But that's no excuse, and as educators, we don't accept it as an excuse. We just try and find solutions, and to be surrounded by solutions-based individuals when adversity and chips are stacked against us. It's great to see, as you mentioned, the smiling faces this morning of our little students, our mid-sized students, and also our larger students, those that even tower over me now. I know that's hard for you all to believe, as tall as I am, but also the smiling faces and enjoyment from faculty and staff, and appreciation from one another, that everybody's putting their best foot forward. Because again, these are some trying times in our profession, and we have the right folks in all the right places. And so we also appreciate you all's fearless and full-fledged support as we continue to make our mark and make a difference.
Thank you, Dr.
Mr. Weber, one thing before,
Yes.
I don't want to step on your toes, I don't think you're going to say this, but we normally don't talk about personnel, but he's been in the audience, and we also approved him as the area manager for our school safety resources. Mr. Thaws, welcome to the team.
Another call.
Yep. Great name in the school and great name in local law enforcement.
I'm truly excited, you guys. This has been a conversation that's developed kind of quickly. Something that's been on my heart for a while. It's ingrained in me pretty deep through my roots and heritage from my fathers. But your future, the school system, our future, the school system now is bright. And I'm excited to be a part of a team that's moving in the right direction. I'm part of a team that's able to collaborate, communicate, and accomplish those difficult days like Dr. Wright referred to. So, thank you. Appreciate it.
Welcome
And
aboard.
we indeed plan to bring Officer Tholes back before our Board of Governors in a month or two to provide an update after he gets a chance to come in and assess where we are. As I've mentioned during our welcome back celebration yesterday, as I've said, we are indeed level setting and looking at our current practices and reviewing, reflecting, and finding ways in which we can revise to get better across the board. And of the amazing presentation from Mrs. Sansini a few board meetings ago, we understand and know what the data is telling us, not only in the classroom, but also outside the classroom. So, like I said, we have a great team in place, and faculty and staff that are also committed, parents and community. So,
Hope I didn't steal your thunder there, Mr. President.
thank you, Officer Tholes. Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you.
Board members, this is very somber. While we've been meeting, there's been an officer shooting in Richmond. I left to call my law partner, the city attorney, confirmed it. I can only assure you it's not Member Stevens. The rest of the information that he gave me was secondhand from a call that he had with Chief Purcell, RPD. So I would only suggest that this was apparently a traffic stop, that the officer was shot just like we saw in so many other instances in the news. But I would just suggest that we might leave the meeting with a moment of silence before we adjourn. It would be appropriate.
Thank you. Mr. Kress, if we take a moment of silence, please. Thank you.